This is Bumper to Bumper, the car show. Drive in anxious and cruise out confident. With the best automotive information for your vehicle. And now your hosts, Matt Allen and Dave Riccio.
Happy Saturday, everyone. I'm here because I did not win the lottery, so I'll be here with you all show. I really thought I had a chance. Welcome to Bumper Radio. I am Dave Riccio here along with Matt Allen, and we are here to help you with your car every Saturday from 11 to noon. At Bumper to Bumper Radio, we are keeping you in the know about your car, how the rules have changed about your car, things we used to do 20 years ago we don't do anymore, and also how...
In your case, that was like wear diapers, or...
Yeah, definitely. It wasn't diapers. So... Anyhow, if you've got car questions, we've got car answers, and you can get a hold of us at 602-277-5827, 602-277-KTAR. And today on the Bumper to Bumper Road Map, we're going to tell you about a little automotive sting that happened this week. We're going to have open phones and texts and tire maintenance. And the reason this is coming up for me is that I had a customer in my shop who I rebuilt his transmission in 2010. And his transmission is still under warranty. Well, he gets another repair on his car. He's at his general repair mechanic, and they change his radiator in his car. And he leaves with his new radiator, and he's driving around, and there's a noise. So he does, well, I just got the radiator replaced. I'll go immediately back there. So he goes back over there, and they look at it, and they drive it around, and they can't determine what it is. And they say, wait, we're not sure what it is, but we think it's coming from the transmission. So guess where he goes next? He comes right over to my shop. And he says, I was at Ken's, and I got a radiator, and my transmission's making noise. I need you to fix it. Well, now I got to go figure out why this thing's making noise. And I drive it. I had to drive with the customer for half an hour because it was only every now and then that it made a noise before I finally heard the noise in order to go find the noise. Got several hours into this thing. I called the customer. I said, did they do anything else at the same time that they did the radiator in your car? And he goes, oh, yeah, I brought 2 tires. Oh.
No, wait a minute. He brought them?
He bought
2
tires.
You didn't see all the blue on the sidewall still?
So I go, well, it had been 300 miles since he was there. And I'm like, oh, there's our problem right there. This was an all-wheel drive Ford Explorer. And people don't realize this. If you drive an all-wheel drive vehicle, this isn't every all-wheel drive, but this is the ones where your vehicle is constantly in all-wheel drive.
Well, it is every all-wheel drive, but not four-wheel drive. There is a big difference between four-wheel drive and all-wheel drive.
Yeah, so if you have an all-wheel drive vehicle, you're not going to go buy 2 tires at a time because the tires in the front have to be exactly the same circumference as the tires in the rear. So if 2 are new, they're going to have new tread on them. They're going to be bigger, and the ones on the other side are going to be smaller. So there has to be give because they all have to rotate at the same speed. And the only place to give is in the transfer case or the all-wheel drive function of the vehicle. So that was the problem. And what we did was we got a gauge that we can measure the tires. And there was only a 1/4 of an inch difference between the front tires and the rear tires, and that was enough to cause a problem. Had this gone on for more than 300 miles, let's say 5,000 miles, he would have had a very expensive transfer case repair. And we do at least one a month, where somebody bought 2 tires, and now they're spending $2,000 on a transfer case.
Or even a single. So when you're talking about the 1/2 inch or the 1/4 inch, Dave, you're talking about using a stagger gauge, which is like a caliper, a slide caliper, and that's where the measurement was. And that was a 1/4 inch off.
1/4 inch, and that measures the tool that we use measures circumference.
Right.
So the other way to do it that maybe people can picture better in their mind is if we took a car that was parked, we took a piece of chalk and we drew a line on the tire at 6 o'clock on all 4 tires, and then we drove it across the parking lot. If there was a circumference difference between front and rear, those chalk marks would be somewhere else. One would be at 3 o'clock and one would be at 12 o'clock.
Well, or what you do, that or what we've done is you mark it at 6 o'clock and you mark that right onto the ground too. You roll the car or you roll the tire until that chalk mark lines back up with the ground again and mark it, and then you run a tape measure and measure the total rolling distance of the tire. It's the same outcome, but
right.
that's how it. But I see what you're saying. It would be a different time on the 6 o'clock. It might be, we'll exaggerate. One tire might be 6, one might be 5 p.m., one might be bedtime. So, that's a problem. So I guess part of what we're saying, David, what do we have? We have to know We're talking more about the tires guys here. So if you have an all-wheel drive car, doing a onesie or a twosie is really not good.
It's not a good thing at all, and it's almost offensive when you go to the tire store. You say, hey, I want to buy 2 tires, because traditionally we always buy 2 tires, and now we can't do that anymore. And the guy goes, you got to buy all 4. You think, is this guy being pushy or what? I don't want to buy 4 tires. I just want to buy 2. If you have a transfer case, believe me, or all-wheel drive, believe me, you want all 4 tires.
Right.
I mean, it's super important. So that's one of the things where the rules have changed. The next thing that comes to mind if you have an all-wheel drive vehicle is you got to stay up with your tire rotations. So my rule of thumb is that oil changes typically happen for me every 5,000 miles. So I rotate my tires every oil change. Back when I sold tires back in the day, it was a 6,000-mile interval.
Yeah,
is
you
what
would
we
do
had.
every other oil change.
Every other oil change, but now that oil changes have spread out a little bit, and a lot of people are in that 5,000-mile interval, go ahead and get the tires rotated every oil change, and that keeps you out of trouble with your tires.
Now, Dave, I agree. I mean, if you really want to get perfect life out of your tires, 5,000 miles is pretty good. I kind of on the edge, on the fence, so to speak, on that. I think maybe it's a little bit too often. How many times do we rotate the tires on the car, and now we've changed the characters of the car? You might end up with a tire rotation, and now you've got this wobble at 45 miles an hour. Or maybe you've got a slight drift to the left or the right, so now you're back into the shop who just did an oil change, and they're
you got a problem that you didn't have before.
Yeah, now you have, because you can have a tire. A lot of times people come in, they think they need an alignment, which this is another thing we need to talk about. They get the terminology
mixed up.
Confused. They have a shake and they think they need an alignment, not a wheel balance, or vice versa. But we put the tires on the front, and now you got a vibration. Now you've got a pull, and it's just by moving the tire around. We'll have people come in for an alignment, and all we'll do is cross the tires, maybe from the right to the left or the front to the rear, change the position, and now that problem goes away. So we can't necessarily correct that with an alignment, and now you go get the tires rotated again. So, you're I guess damned if you do and damned if you don't sometimes.
Well, I think the rule of thumb, if you got a severe radial tire pull and that happens, and what I mean by that is sometimes tires have a pull built into them. So even though the tire looks normal, it will cause the vehicle to go one direction or the other. And so let's just say that tire happens to be on the rear of the car. You go to Virginia Auto Service, they change your oil and they rotate your tires. Now that kind of blended tire is on the front of the car, and you leave, and all of a sudden your car is like, I used to be in the center lane, but now I'm in the right lane. What'd they do to my car? They screwed up my alignment,
Yeah,
and they didn't do anything other than just take the tire off the back and put it on the front. And now we have a problem. So that's the negative of rotating your tires, is that can happen. But, it shouldn't, just don't be excited if that's what happens.
Yeah, if there's some slight change. And then the other thing is the balance. Do you get a rotation only, which a lot of shops will include with the oil service, or do you get a rotation and balance? I know we like to upgrade to the balance because we've had that where the car comes back with that vibration. So, we tend to stretch them out a little bit longer. But on the all-wheel drive cars, you really want to. It's a bummer though to have brand new tires or have them halfway worn out and you get a flat on one.
Oh yeah, you get a tire that's no good. It can't be fixed. There's places we can buy tires where we can buy them, and we can buy them pre-shaved down to match the other tires on the car. And that's something that's available for that very situation.
So real quick, if you're driving, General Motors says that all tires should be within 2/32 of an inch. Let's see here. 4/32 is what Audi says. They must remain in a rolling radius of 4/32 of an inch. Tread depth as well. Subaru says they should be in a 1/4 inch. These are Audi, Subaru. Those are some of a lot of those cars come in all-wheel drive. So you're right, David. Very expensive repair can happen because of that. But then when do we replace the tires?
Oh yeah,
how
in the old days
down?
we used to say you stick a penny between the tread, and if it hits Abe Lincoln's head, that's kind of the threshold right there, which was 2/32 of an inch. Nowadays we say put a 1/4 in there, and if it hits Washington's head,
inflation, I guess.
Yeah,
right?
3/32 of an inch, and that's just going with the times. So that is when you should be looking at getting new tires. And tires, I would say, what is a rule of thumb? I say tires last from 30 to 50,000 miles. That's kind of the window of how long they last. and that was a problem in years gone past where tires that have really hard tread, the tread will be there for 80,000 miles, but at 80,000 miles, the rest of the tire's falling apart, and the tread comes off the tire.
And realistically, you really think a tire's going to last 80,000 miles? We could really dig into the UTQG ratings and all the government-mandated testing, because you can go throw any manufacturer can say, this is an 80,000 mile tire, but there's test data that is marked on every single tire, the UTQG rating of that tire, which is going to tell you about how long that lasts. You see a UTQG rating that's fairly low, and they've got an 80,000 mile warranty on it. You know that's just a cheap tire that someone's just selling warranty. You take a good brand name tire, and that UTQG number is more in alignment with
how long it's going to last.
The reality of it. Because they'll warranty it forever and just prorate the tire. The other thing is, what about the age? On the side of the tire, there's a DOT number, Department of Transportation, and that will tell you the age. So as your tires start to age and maybe time out, that 5-year, 6-year time frame, you can look at, there's a 4-digit number. For example, a tire made last week would be 0216, manufactured in the second week of 2016. So those are some of the little tips.
When we come back, we're taking your phone calls at 602-277-5827. If you want to talk about tires or anything related to your vehicle, you're listening to Matt and Dave, your KTAR Car Guys on Bumper to Bumper Radio. Well, we're talking tires here today, and one of the big confusions is alignment and tire balance. If you're feeling a shake when you're going down the freeway, that's tire balance. That could be other things, but if it was a tire problem, it would be tire balance. If you're driving down the road and your car wants to go into the next lane over, that could possibly be an alignment issue. So those are the two terms that everyone gets turned around. And the best way I can describe it is there's imperfections in the tire and there's imperfections in the wheel. And when we balance that tire out, we put weights on there to correct for that. It's like your ceiling fan at home. If you unscrewed one of the blades and took it off and turned the ceiling fan on, the thing would shake itself right off the roof.
Or just tape a washer to it.
Yeah, tape a quarter to it.
Yeah.
And that thing will shake like a son of a gun. And that's what's happening is we're fine-tuning the tire and the wheel as a set together. And so that's balance, and then alignment is us making sure all those wheels track down the road exactly the way they're supposed to. So you don't have one that's, pigeon-toed or what do they call that kind of boat?
Toed in, toed out.
Toed in, toed out. So they're all running down the road the same way. And if you get in bad tire wear, that's going to be an alignment issue. Sometimes it can be a balance issue, but most commonly it's just alignment
or a shock absorber issue or a strut. I mean, there's all kinds of things. But if you're clobbering curbs and going through potholes and then your car starts pulling, you've probably knocked it out of alignment or things wear out and bend. If you're just driving down the freeway and suddenly the car's pulling to the left, you've probably got a tire that just had an issue. But having all that information when you come to the shop is good. When did it happen? At what speeds? How much does it change lanes? Can you let go of the steering wheel at 50 miles an hour and does it take 100 yards to change lanes, or does it do it right away, like it wants to get off the exit ramp?
Well, 602-277-5827, 602-277-KTAR. You can also text us at 411-923. We're going to go with Scott in Phoenix on a 1996 GMC van. How can we help you, Scott? You're on Bumper to Bumper Radio.
Hi, how you doing?
Fantastic.
I have my van, I've got a blown manifold intake gasket, and I've heard about this stuff. It's called the gasket repair. I just have a couple of quick questions. First of all, what's your opinion of that stuff? And, the stuff you pour it in the radiator, I guess, and it supposedly seals the gasket. And secondly, it said on the bottle that if you do this, you have to do it, severe engine damage can result. What do you mean that? And one last thing, how much would you guys, just a ballpark figure, how much you charge to do a manifold intake gasket?
Well, are you sure it's the intake manifold gasket or is it the head gasket? Because I think the thing that the magic in a can that I've seen repairs blown head gaskets. Well, I shouldn't say it repairs them; it patches them till it blows up worse. But so are you sure it's an intake manifold gasket that you have? What's your symptom that you're having?
I've got water in the crankcase.
Okay, water in the crankcase. So chances are that is an intake manifold gasket that's leaking, but I wouldn't. I mean, unless you just absolutely do not have any budget to fix this vehicle, I guess you could try that. But I mean, they just don't work typically. I mean, those are emergency repair things. That intake manifold gasket, I'm going to bet that car, that cooling system's maybe been a bit neglected. And what we see is not just that the gasket is bad, but there's corrosion in the aluminum is eaten up on the gasket or on the intake manifold, and sometimes those will need to be replaced. I mean, that sealer is just it got a bunch of material in it, and it just boogers and globs up and plugs the hole, is all it really does. So it may work, it may not work, but if you've got water in the crankcase, I mean, that thing's not lubricating the bearings right, chances are you could very well easily blow up the engine too.
And he had a question. He had a question about price. What should something like that cost?
Well, geez, I mean, this is where people get in trouble. You start doing the phone quote. This might go into one shop, and I'm going to make a couple of assumptions here. I'm going to assume that the cooling system has been neglected. I'm going to assume this 96. Let's see, is my math right? 20 years old. It's a van, GMC van. They're not real easy to work on with the doghouse and everything. So is someone going to just go in and replace the intake manifold gasket where they've got to take spark plug wires off that are probably going to break? The spark plugs haven't been replaced in a long time. The oil's dirty. Inevitably, there's a couple heater hoses that need to be replaced. Are we going to make a proactive repair on this? And I can a couple $1,000 maybe? Or is someone going to go in and they're going to go take it apart the best they can? They're going to repair the broken spark plug wires. They're going to use all the old clamps. They're going to put some gaskets in there. They may or may not flush out the radiator. They may or may not, bring the cooling system up to standard. Replace some hoses, so you can get your bare bones repair maybe for $600 or $700, or you can fix it and do a good job and do it right. Looking into the future, maybe for $2,500. It's all over the board. I don't think there's a right answer or a good or a wrong, a bad answer.
And it goes back to having a good relationship with your shop, and they can determine what you want from it. So if you need a good shop, bumper-to-bumper-radio.com. Thanks for the call, Scott, 602-277-5827. We're going to go out to Glendale on a BMW X5. You're on Bumper to Bumper Radio. How can we help you today?
Yes, thank you guys for taking my call. I have this 2002 BMW X5, which I'm going to start to the engine right now because you're going to hear very, very weird noise. Okay, the car is starting. Can you hear that thing?
Sounds like an engine to me.
Okay, I'm going to shut it off.
Yeah, good idea.
Okay, I shut it off. Now I'm inside the house. I can hear you better.
Yeah, so that didn't really help much. It makes a lot of noise. But so tell us a little bit more. What kind of problem? What's happening?
Okay, when I start the car in the morning, first of all, the transmission, when I put the car in gear, there is no problem getting out of the garage. But unless the engine is very warm, I cannot put the car in gear. When I put in gear, it hesitates. It kind of sleeps. It doesn't engage.
And that's just in your forward drive gear.
I'm sorry?
That's just in your forward drive gear?
I don't know if this is forward drive. I really don't know.
No, okay. So it just doesn't want to accelerate in drive, I think, is what we're getting at, Dave. I mean,
yeah, and I couldn't tell if that was reverse or drive because he said he could get out of the garage, but I don't know if he's on a hill. It could be on a hill, and that may help it get out of the driveway. Well, one of the things that show up in the winter is when transmissions are low on fluid because there's been a leak going on. It doesn't really show up till it gets really cold out, and that's because transmission fluid expands and contracts with temperature. And when it's really cold out, it's going to be really low on fluid, and that morning sickness happens all the time. So when we come back, we're still taking your calls at 602-277-5827. You're listening to Matt and Dave, your KTAR car guys.
Fix it or forget it. This is the show that'll help you decide what to do with your car. Bumper to Bumper Radio. KTAR News on 92.3 FM.
So we've been talking about tires a little bit today, when the right time to replace them is, and what the proper maintenance, when you want to rotate them, when you should replace them, how many you should buy. So if you're out tire shopping today or have any questions about your car, it doesn't matter if it's a tire question, it doesn't matter if it's about a repair, maybe the grocery list, maybe you're looking up in the window as you drive right now and that oil change is very past due and you're looking for a home, anything to do with your car, we can help you with that. I'm Matt Allen, along with Dave Riccio, and every Saturday from 11 to noon, we are your KTAR car guys on Bumper to Bumper Radio.
Well, I got a text here, Matt, from somebody asking if there's an infographic for all those crazy numbers on the sidewall of the tire, because you said something called UTQG, which, as long as I've been around tires, you know, there's so many numbers there. There's temperature rating, there's tread wear rating. Some of those numbers are manufacturer set, and some of them are government regulated numbers. And so, yeah, we could do a whole seminar on that. And I don't. You know, there's a lot of
we might have to get one of the guys from S&S Tire in, or a manufacturer that really wants to dig into talking about tires. I have a feeling that, you know, it's like oil. You start talking about oil changes and intervals, and the phones just light up and the calls go crazy. Which, by the way, if you do have that question, it's 602-277-5827, 602-277-KTAR. And if you'd like to text, you can do that at 411-923.
Well, up first this segment, we've got Brandon in Mesa with a 1998 Chevy Silverado. How can we help you, Brandon? You're on Bumper to Bumper Radio.
Hey, guys.
Hey.
Hey, I'm on my truck. It seems like I got a water leak problem. I'll be driving the truck around for, I don't know, maybe couple of days, and when I get it back home and then leave it overnight and I'll drive it out the next day, the temperature gauge goes up to like just past 210, and then I guess when the water starts flowing, it'll go back down to, you know, like 150 or whatever. And then I'll check the radiator, and it's down below, the fill-up spout. I took it in, and they pressure tested it. They drove it around, pressure tested it, but they said they couldn't find a leak in there. But even after I took it in, I'm still having this problem to where I have to fill it up every couple of days to make sure that there's enough water in there. Got any ideas?
Well, yeah, I mean, the water's going somewhere, obviously, so we just need to determine where is it.
Well, it's not water, because we're not going to call a plumber.
Cool. I mean, cool. True. Cool. What was that? True. It's antifreeze. It's coolant, antifreeze, water, whatever. But we'll just, for the sake of the argument, Dave, we're going to call it water.
Okay.
The
water's going somewhere.
It's going somewhere. Leaks are strange. You can have a car that the water pump bearing area will just puke water when it's cold, but you heat it up and it doesn't leak. So I would suggest that the shop probably needs to keep this car overnight. I would have it. I mean, if this came into my shop, I'm going to ask you all the questions. When was the last time you filled it? How often do you drive it? Just so on and so forth. We're going to bring that car in while it's hot. Check the water level. Carefully, opening the radiator cap. Make sure it's full. We're going to do a pressure test. We're going to put 16, 20 pounds of pressure on the system, whatever it's rated for, and then a few pounds. See if we can't make it break in the shop, right? We want to force it to leak.
Aggravate it a bit.
We're going to test the radiator cap to make sure that that's holding the way it should be, and we're going to look for leaks everywhere.
Well, the other places that it could go into the combustion chamber. Like if you had a head gasket problem, you're not going to see that. There's a little steam out your tailpipe you're not going to know about. The other places it can actually leak into the transmission through the transmission cooler. That's a possibility. And, it could also leak into the oil or the crankcase
get
part
into
of
the
things.
crankcase. So after we've done that pressure test and we don't find any leaks, we might just have that overnight, and we may leave it on pressure. If we have some reason to think we might have a blown head gasket or an issue, we're going to do a block test where we're going to check for the presence of exhaust coming out of the radiator. That would indicate a blown head gasket. Sometimes those don't always work. It can be a very minor amount. If depending on the engine, we might pull the spark plugs out and leave this radiator under pressure all night and see if we've got some water in the coolant. or we might aggravate it, leave that pressure overnight. If we start it up and it stumbles and misfires and then steams, that would be an indication there's some in the getting into the cylinders through a crankcase. The other thing we can do is add ultraviolet dye to that cooling system. Have you drive it for a few days, come back and see if there's some external leak. It just leaks enough, and maybe it never actually drips and makes it to the ground.
Well, thanks for the call, Brandon. If you're looking for a good shop, you can find them at bumpertobumperradio.com. We notice you're in Mesa. We've got great shops in Mesa, Mesa Auto Works. Also, we have Lee Weatherby at Accurate Automotive in Mesa. Either one of those shops are perfectly capable of doing everything that Matt was just talking about. And, well, we got a board. Let's go with Frank in Mesa on an 03 Chevy Tahoe. Frank, you're on Bumper to Bumper Radio.
How you guys doing?
Fantastic.
Great. I love your show. A couple quick questions. 03 Chevy Tahoe. Fuel pump had to be changed out. It's funny because I noticed before I changed the fuel pump out, every time I put gas in the in my vehicle, the fuel needle would go rapidly to full or half full, or whatever much I put in. It would go quick. Now, once I changed the fuel pump out, now the gas gauge needle takes a long time to register how much gas is in there, to where before it was quick.
Well,
How do you explain that?
When you replaced the fuel pump, did you replace the entire fuel pump module assembly?
Yeah, the whole assembly, yes, sir.
And, well, I would say maybe I don't know about the quickness, how fast it happens, if that's really an issue. But I would suggest maybe the old one was not working right, and
kind of what I'm thinking. And sometimes even different manufacturers of the parts, there may be a little bit more of a slush built into that module where it's not going to be as erratic, as far as what your fuel gauge looks like.
Yeah, because I have gone to the gas station with an empty. I'm talking no miles left, empty. Filled the tank to the top and pull out of there, and it says 3/4 of a tank.
Before it gets out, it takes a little while to get up.
It stabilizes. I don't know why. I mean, the thing's floating. So who knows? Maybe there's a.
It almost looks like a float in a toilet, from the old days, with a big arm in the ball on the end, and that goes up with the fuel, and then it's almost like a little rheostat there that sends information to that gauge and tells how much gas is in the fuel tank. But they are designed with a little bit of slush in there because when you go around a corner, that level will change. And when that level changes, they don't want the gauge moving all over the map. It just happens.
There's probably a bit of a delay built into the body control module, I would imagine.
Well, thanks for the call. We are going to go with Hale, Larry in Sun City on a 2013 Chevy Silverado. How can we help you, Larry? You're on Bumper to Bumper Radio.
Yes, I have just purchased a brand new set of Michelin tires. And they tell me they got a 70,000-mile warranty. And I was listening to you earlier talking about, tires and what their tread life expectancy is. I've always gone with Michelin because I felt they were a really good tire. But I noticed when I start off in the morning, tires are cold. I get a little thumping as I'm driving. It settles down after I drive a couple of miles. I guess it's because the tires are warming up. That's normal, isn't it?
Dave, I would say I wouldn't be anything to be concerned about. You can't go really wrong with the Michelin brand of tire. I've never heard of people having real problems with them. I mean, I'm sure they have defects at times, and you may have a problem, but otherwise, not a big deal.
In the old days with the bias ply tires, they really got square overnight. Where the side of the tire that was on the ground would have a kind of a flat spot to it, and they would kind of warm up and round out and that type of thing. You don't really see that much anymore. I wonder if that's the thumping that he's hearing is actually from the tires. But I would agree with you on the Michelin tires. I got Michelins on my car, and they've been great. I think S&S Tire is a Michelin distributor also.
Yeah, they are.
Yeah, I know.
They are, and that 700 number. Our 70,000-mile tire warranty. Now, in a Michelin, I bet if you went up and looked at the specs on that tire and Google, you could Google the brand and the name of the tire, and the UTQG number is probably going to be a 700 on there. That number is usually in line with the mileage expectancy. You might see a tire at Acme Tire Shop where it's got a UTQG of 400, which would be a 40,000-mile tire, but they call it an 80,000-mile tire.
How does that happen?
Okay.
For sure.
Well, I purchased them at a discount tire, and they tell me that they are warranted up to 70,000 miles. So, I've always gotten more mileage out of the tires because I rotate them, I keep them balanced, I keep my alignment right. And typically if I don't run them till they're bald. Arizona heats hard on tires, so I try to keep properly inflated.
Right, and that's how you're going to get your good life out of the tire is by keeping them rotated, keeping them balanced. And the other thing is a tire warranty is much like a battery. It's going to be prorated. So if it's a 70,000 mile tire and then it only lasts 55,000 miles, they're going to just do some math and they're going to give you X amount of credit towards your next set of tires.
Well, the other thing, too, we talked about age, but we'll get to that after the break. But I did want to mention there was a sting. Our Attorney General did a sting on an auto repair shop that was selling things they shouldn't have been selling.
Yeah, apparently it looks like they went into a transmission shop, and I don't even know, over 19th Avenue somewhere. It's on the news. You can search it. This is public information, but they prepared a car in a fashion that would make it not operate right, which would take somebody a little bit of diagnostic time to look at, maybe pull a battery out and get to this connector that they unplugged. Well, it looks like maybe these people just found that and then quietly sold them a transmission overhaul. And I guess if the Attorney General was there was probably a history of complaints. And one of those complaints had to do with their advertising. It's one of those too good to be trues. And essentially this was Hispanic people advertising to the Hispanic community and saying, rebuilds for $299. No transmission gets rebuilt for No transmission gets rebuilt for $599 either, I don't think. By the way, I don't think there's free towing either.
Well, that's the other thing. That's the other thing that comes up, and just because as consumers, we want you to be aware of that kind of advertising. I would say shops that run like that are probably few and far between. You don't have to, you have to be on guard every shop you go to. But if you're dealing with a business that has really unrealistic advertising, you got to be a little more cautious. Going in there, you take not much happens for $300 in a transmission shop.
No.
Unless they would have just plugged the wire in that was unplugged, or unless it was just low on fluid. Yeah, that's going to be $100 kind of thing. But otherwise, so as consumers, unrealistic advertising. Let's just talk about that today, and that's a way to stay out of those type of places. And then when we come back, we've got looks like Carla, Larry, and maybe Lewis. You listen to Matt and Dave, your KTAR car guys on Bumper to Bumper Radio.
Who can you trust here in the Valley to repair your ride? This is Bumper to Bumper Radio. KTAR News on 92.3 FM.
Well, for those of you that know the show, you know that I'm Dave Riccio. I own an auto repair shop in Tempe called Tri-City Transmission. He is Matt Allen, and they got a shop on Virginia, 7th Street in Virginia, called Virginia Auto Service. But we have a list of shops on bumpertobumperradio.com where you can find an honest shop. And the thing about this show, what it's about is if you've ever watched Charlie Brown in the teacher talk, she says, wah, 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 wah. And when you go to the auto shop, we're afraid that what you hear is wah, 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 $500. Wah, 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 tomorrow. And so we want to help you with that Charlie Brown school teacher problem if we can, so that when you go to the auto shop, you feel more comfortable about what you're hearing. Oh, that sounds familiar. I heard Matt talking about that. Or, oh, yeah, Dave said something about that. And so you feel comfortable going in there. We want to take the stress and anxiety out of it. And the other thing that we like to see is we like to see you get a relationship with the shop. Excuse me. Wow. Getting choked up.
Literally.
We like to see you get a relationship with a shop so that you're not going to these fly-by-night, low-ball advertising type places. Go to a shop where they can talk through. We had the guy calling earlier on the 96 Astro van, talk through, hey, do you want to just rebuild this whole engine while we're there doing this intake gasket, or do we just want to patch it up as bare minimum as possible because you're going to throw this thing away 3 months from now when you get a new job?
Well, and I think people need to ask questions when they go to the shop. I love at the shop, we have a job, big job, small job, overhaul, doesn't matter. And you want to explain it. You can tell that people aren't really quite sure what you're talking about. They do trust you, and they want you to fix it. Well, let me come out and show you. Well, I wouldn't know what I'm looking at anyway. And I love the opportunity to say, well, let's come out. That way you can know. Don't just take my word for it. I want you to ask questions. I want you to say, well, what if I don't do that? Or what's the consequences of doing this or leaving it alone? Or how can we do this better? Or what can we do to save money? And I can take you out, or I can show you. I mean, we do the digital inspections at my shop where we can send you the photographs that we take from the iPad, or we can take you out and really show you what's going on with your car. I really want my customers to have a clear understanding of what they're buying.
For sure. We got to get the phones. We got Carla, Larry, and looks like Lewis. Let's go with Carla in Peoria on a 2010 Chevy Avelo. How can we help you, Carla? You're on Bumper to Bumper Radio.
Hi, thank you for taking my call. That's why I love your show, because I'm a woman and I don't know a lot about cars, but one thing I noticed driving my car now, when I hit my accelerator, I hear this roaring noise in it now, which I've never heard before, and just trying to figure out what it is, or a good shop I can take it to find out what it is. Would you have any idea what it could be?
Now tell me about that noise. When does that happen? What are the circumstances?
When I first hit my accelerator, and I noticed it more now that it's cold, like when I first start up my car and I take off, it's just a roaring noise, and I'm like, what is that noise? You know, I never used to hear it before, and I thought maybe it was my brakes. I got my brakes fixed last week, but I still hear it, and I'm just trying to figure out what it could be.
Okay, well, I mean, it's hard to say without hearing it, Carla, but I think you're in Peoria. On the bumpertobumperradio.com, you will find Dave's Car Care. Dave Denman is at 51st Avenue in Peoria, been there 35 years. They can fix your car. And that's what we talked about earlier, too, about finding a home for your car. Carla doesn't really know what's going on. Maybe she went to the brake place and got them fixed because they thought that might have been what it was. Now, I don't know what getting the brakes fixed and what that has to do, but you go to a brake shop with a noise, you might just end up with brakes.
That's what they sell. You go to a haircut or a barbershop long enough, you can get a haircut.
Even me, right?
Yeah.
I mean, they'll come up with something. But if you're looking for a home, try Dave's Car Care. Take the car in. There'll be a diagnostic charge, I'm sure, to take a look at it. Sometimes that goes to the repair. Many times it doesn't. And then you can go there and you can know you're at the right place that can take care of everything.
Hey, the other point, and I think everybody can benefit from this, if you have a noise, get the service writer or a technician to go in the car with you so you can show them the noise. You know, she's talking about a noise where she accelerates, the engine roars. It's probably not a brake problem, you know, but but you want the shop to fix what you're in there for, not something else they saw, because you never got your original concern addressed, and I think that may be what's happening. So we're going to go with Larry in Tempe on a 2012 Hyundai Elantra. Go ahead, Larry. You're on Bumper to Bumper Radio.
I've got a lot of miles on my car, and I keep the engine immaculate. I wash it probably every 2 or 3 weeks.
It's probably too much.
And
okay.
I just had an issue where my reverse quit working. And I went to the dealer, and I don't want to say the dealer's name because it doesn't really matter, but they put a new transmission in. And everything transmission-wise is fine. But I opened the hood probably 2 weeks, 3 weeks after they put the transmission in, and I noticed the 2 air conditioning hoses are filthy. And I thought, wow, that's weird. It looks like it's leaking. I'm sorry, the 2 air conditioning hoses are filthy.
Right.
So I thought, man, it looks like it's leaking Freon. So I turned the air conditioner on. It blew, and this was 2 days ago, so it's kind of cold out, and it's a little hard to tell. But the air conditioner blew cool, didn't blow cold for about 5 minutes, and then blew warm. So it appears that there's no Freon in it. Is it possible that when they put the transmission in, they damaged those hoses? Should I go back to them and question them about it? Or should I just say, hey, the car's got a lot of miles on it, and that's just something that normally would break?
What does a lot of miles mean?
217,000.
Okay. Well, if it's got the original radiator hoses or the original air conditioning hoses, you probably got your money's worth out of them. We go to change mounts on cars, or you do different kind of work. Some people are lazier than others. Maybe they let that engine dangle down, and maybe it tugged on the transmission.
And maybe
line.
they didn't.
And maybe they didn't. No, I'm just saying. It could be. It's certainly worth going back to talk to them. It sounds like you're pretty familiar with what's under the hood. That could have been a situation that where that was, but very well may not have been. Maybe you didn't notice it before. It's hard to say. But any time you have a repair on your car that something maybe didn't work right, it's always worth going back and having a talk with them. You don't have to go in there raging, mad. And I'm not suggesting that you sound like a very reasonable person. Just go in and talk to them and say, guys, here's what I found. What do you think? And depending on what answer, what does your gut tell you, you're going to either accept it or you're not. But I doubt anything was done maliciously. Again, 200 and some odd thousand miles on it. You got your money's worth.
Fantastic. Well, if you like to catch the show, maybe there's something you want to go back and refer to, you can find them on iTunes. It's podcasted now. Hey, Bree, thanks for running the dials, and thanks for joining us. And remember to find a great shop. If you've got a good technician, you don't need to run off to bumper-to-bumper-radio.com. But if you don't have one and you're looking for a place to call home, go to bumper-to-bumper-radio.com. We'll see you next week.